Let us welcome.
Certainly not be sitting in this chair. The percentage of the chances that you and I would bear that number is extremely slim. And that means that the rest of us will be out of here for the worst day. I hope to prove that, or at least make it more clear tomorrow. What I came today to do is to stretch your minds. What I attempted to do last night, a few nights I had, I'm sorry we don't have that. Because you have to help what I had to do for us today. We have to have a mic on one side and a mic on the other so that we don't lose time. Because if these tapes come out, hopefully they'll go in other cities and other people may be benefited by whatever we do here today. Yes, ma'am. How many coupons? We're ready. If they were written, it's 90 cents. So you divide 25,000 into 66 trillion. What do you come up with? 2,640,000. What'd you say? Say it again. 2,640,000,000. When I want to write it, you have to be able to see it. If I gotta go over the property, it's gotta be up where everybody can see it. Otherwise, the whole purpose of what I came to do is out the window. I can't do it. I don't want to do it verbally, okay? And you came up with 2,640,000,000. 2,640,000,000. How many of you agree with that? How many of you don't know? How many of you wasn't even here last night? Not here, so of course you don't know, but okay. 2,640,000,000 times. Is that a lot of times? Now that's an approximation because you're rounding it off. That trillion years, how long is that, sisters and brothers? How long is a trillion years? Well, it's just a billion millions. Now, a billion millions times 66 gives us 66 trillion. Why should the meeting start off with this? You'll see in a minute. Now, 2,640,000,000 times. By the blackboard being over there, that means I'm going to have to move over there and be over there for a while. And all of you sisters on this blackboard, well, look, do the best you can, make the best we can of the physical circumstances. And when we have a break or whatever, we're going to have a break in a while, then you can go and look at it. And also, I'm verbalizing it, so I'm talking as I'll be writing on the board, okay? Now, the judge over each writing, as you already know, because I understand we're dealing with our Savior has arrived. And you've already read Message to the Black Man. But there's no need for me in this meeting to explain what the greetings are, right? Everybody in here is a registered Muslim, followers of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, correct? Now, we don't have to waste time with a lot of talk that just will eat up 15, 20 minutes or a half hour before we get to where we really want to go to. What am I getting at is that there are times when in personal discussion with another believer, well, it's just different than when you talk to a person who's not a believer. The conversation cannot be the same when you're talking over the big issues. You can't talk about God with a person who does not believe the same way you can with a person who believes. Your purpose is going to be different. Maybe with another believer, you're just trading information, edifying or helping each other over what you mutually have accepted. But when you talk with a person that doesn't know anything about this or doesn't like it, then the whole nature of your conversation is compelled. I mean, you're forced to change. You agree with that simple point? Now, so we're going to spend time dealing with some facts, some things that you already know. There's nothing I'm going to say that you don't already know or don't already have access to if you got the basic literature. If you got most of Minister Farrakhan's Savior's Day tapes, maybe some from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this is not going to be something that is strange. But I hope to organize it or present it in a way where not only does it make more sense, but you feel more connected to what you've already been studying, what you say you believe in, that involves or includes things that happened a long time ago. Was you here? You and I was you here, but you can't go to the average bookstore, no bookstores in America for that matter. I say the average bookstore because bookstores that sell our literature are out of the average. They're not the same as anybody else's bookstores. You don't go into a Crock and Pantano's and find a bunch of tapes that Mr. Farrakhan has made. You may find a Holy Quran or two, but you're not hardly going to find Message to the Black Man or the Minister Study Guides, are you? Okay. Now, you can't go into those bookstores and find what happened trillions of years ago. You can find speculation on dinosaurs. Right. You can find a lot of guesses about what happened written by some white person 99 times out of 100, who when you get to this fine print or further into his writing, you find he's guessing. And he got paid big money, big honors, big grants, big this, big that, for guessing, for putting his guesses in a very highly educationally sophisticated manner. But he's guessing. White people don't know nothing about what happened 165 million years ago. How best should we go after this? This is the Bible. Underneath it is the Holy Quran, Minister Kadir's books. You all already know from this teaching that the truth is about the entire situation that we're in. It's here in these two books. But it's not put in a form that's easy for us to understand. The writers deliberately wrapped up the truth in symbolic language so that you have to say, in other words. If I say something to my brother and he says, Jabril, I don't know what you're talking about, then sister over here says, well, brother, in other words, he is saying this. He meant to say it, but he said it in a way that requires interpretation. Interpretation only means the act of getting at the meaning. What is the person really trying to get across? Have you ever talked with somebody who uses language poorly? But you and the other person, you're trying to communicate. And the person who's messing over the words is doing their best to get it over. You enter into their spirit, and then they say, well, do you know what I mean? And they say, yes. You say, yes, I do. Because you entered sufficiently into the spirit of the other person. Despite their bad use of language or screwing up the words, you still got the point they were trying to get over. Right? You follow me? Now, we're going to take our first break in approximately an hour, maybe a little less than that. I want you to go, I intend to hold you here till 4 o'clock, maybe 4:30. If you want to leave, go home. No big thing. But I'm saying to you, I'm not going to rush what I got to do. And after it's over, then you can decide whether it was worth your time. And if you think it's not worth your time, then just don't invite me back. That's simple enough, isn't it? Fine. Now, let's take a few very simple preliminary points to get to the point where I want to start writing on this board. We know each of us, even after Islam, we're not perfected. We have problems, don't we? Sometimes we do right, and the brother said, I know what he meant though. He said, don't be holy in it. What he meant was, don't be self-righteous. Am I right? He didn't mean don't be holy because we're trying to become holy. Becoming holy involved becoming healthy, sane, overcoming all the madness. Now, listen to this. You've heard that Master Farad Muhammad loves us, don't you? Haven't you?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever, but do you feel connected to that love? How connected do you feel? Imagine a situation where you come up an orphan, some of us have, but there's a mother and a father, foster parents, who love us so much it more than compensates for what didn't happen from our natural mother and father. That's something that's very common, isn't it? It's easy to understand. Now, sisters, how many of you have children? Look, I want you, brothers, look at that. Look at that show of hands. Almost all of these sisters, right? Now, sisters, how much do you love your children? Well, I wish we had a mic. I mean, this should have been right. But tell me, give me an example. Somebody just say something. How much do you love your children? To the end of the earth, what does that mean? She's just reaching for something. Yes, ma'am. To give your life. All of you would say that, huh? Now, you know, people talk about giving their life, but women mean that about their babies. I don't say all of us brothers are like that. Not quite. And we do give our lives, but they're not the exact same relationship between mama and baby and daddy and baby. Give you an oversimplified example. When babies are born, brothers, you lie when you say the baby looks beautiful. You just lied. But the women see what we don't see. Am I right? Anybody ever been a father? When you look at that child, you're happy and all of that, but you don't say it's cute, you don't say none of that. All you see is a funny looking little person. You know, you're happy, the mother's all right. But you don't walk away with thoughts of how fantastically beautiful this child is. Women do, but we don't, sisters. You understand? We don't see it like y'all do. What's happening is she's seeing it at that moment more accurately. And then women and men are not the same. And if you can't accept that, you know, fully, then of course you stay a midget spiritually forever. Now, look, I can't move this arm too well, but just try to imagine what I'm saying. See this? 2 circles? What I'm saying is an area where we're the same. You put your female foot in 212 Fahrenheit water, he put his male foot in 212 Fahrenheit water, you both holler. It's painful. So there are areas of male and female which are alike and other areas which are not. And the only way to know more about the woman or more about the man is through verbal communication. And the more spiritual it is, the deeper you learn more about the feminine nature or the masculine nature. Is that plain so far? Now, it's that way with learning everything. There's things that happened trillions of years ago. You can't learn about that directly, can you? Huh? You learn most of what we know, we learn through what's called circumstantial evidence. Is there a lawyer in the house? Besides Sister Ruth? Sister, you a lawyer? Okay. Am I right what I just said? Most everything, who else is a lawyer? Am I right, brother?
Yes, sir.
Most everything that's in our head, even things that we absolutely will give our life for, we know it circumstantially. How old are they? Ain't nobody in here 100 years old, right? Yet there are things in your head that you are convinced are true that happened prior to your birth. And you got it from somebody else, right? Or from observing things, rocks, this, that, the other, that's been here a long time. Okay. So, can you learn about something that happened long before your life in such a way where it is as real as things present to your eyes? Yes. Let me give you a heavy-duty example. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told me one day, he said, Brother Master Farad Muhammad took me into the mind of Yaqub and showed me how the idea of devil arose in his mind. That's over 6,000 years ago. Yaqub has been dead a long time. Huh? How do you take another man and take a man into another man's mind to show him how an idea arose? The whole idea of this entire world arose in the mind of a man, and a man looked me in my face and told me that another man took him into the mind of the other man and showed, look at the word showed him how, process by which the very idea arose from this nitty-gritty on up. And then, brother, and I don't know how much time passed between the two, he he took me into the mind of the first God and showed me how the idea of universe arose in his mind. Now, why would a man, Elijah Muhammad in this case, why would that even be part of our conversation? Why should we even know anything about that? Now, that is the higher end aspect of the kindergarten teaching. His whole message is kindergarten. And nobody in the first grade. The leader in the kindergarten is Minister Farrakhan. It's a fact. He'll get out to kindergarten first. He's already destined to do that. He was told that roughly 15 years ago in that more than a vision experience that he was given. Do you know about that? It was announced right here in this city, wasn't it? If there's any mosque that we all the believers should have that tape down pat, October 24th, 1989, it should be you all. That big event happened right here. Now, what I think is the best way, two things that should be said to get into this properly, is first to look at these two books. And remember, the book called Bible has in it what's called the New Testament. The leading figure there is Jesus, and then the leading figure in the rest of the book is Paul. And both men were thankful to God for revealing that which had been deliberately concealed. Well, deliberately concealed is like being redundant. When you say conceal, that is deliberate. If you say hide, that may or may not be deliberate. There is a computer here that I have over here. I'm not concealing it from you. There's just no proper way to put it right now. So I put it down here where it wouldn't fall on the floor. You follow me? So it's hidden from your eyes, but I didn't intend that. But conceal is intentional. Now, Jesus, we are told 2,000 years ago, saw his day as Paul did, and as all those writers in the New Testament, except the last book's writer, saw that time period as the end of the world. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad once said that if we can understand the time better, it's easier for us to accept the truth of the time. Listen to me again. If you take the time now, and I should say this, in the course of what I intend to do, there's several areas where the statements or the point is very short because of the lack of time. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't put a magnifying glass on it and go into it deeply at another time yourself, okay? Or maybe it's an area that you already know a lot about. Fine, but you'll be able to see it in a certain sequence or in a certain context, and it may be better than you have in the past. Now look, the New Testament writers all wrote from the perspective of persons who were convinced that their time was the end of the world. They were wrong. That's not the point. The point is that's how they looked at it, and connected to that concept was what? That what they were teaching, this is a superficial statement, okay? It's not a deep statement. It's a superficial comment on what you find in your New Testament. That they saw their time as the end. They saw that they were chosen to be the vehicles through which the new world came. They saw that the rays of prophecy of the Old Testament converged on their time. They wrote and acted like that, okay? They gave their lives for that concept. They saw Jesus as the Messiah, the one prophesied of by the Old Testament prophets. They saw Rome as this big bad mystery Babylon. And all the things that are written in the Old Testament about bad and good, they saw it as being fulfilled in their day. Are we agreed on that? Okay, next. He said, I thank you, Father, for hiding this wisdom in words from the wise and prudent. Those words, wise and prudent, don't make any sense. Wise and prudent. You gotta go to Greek to make any sense out of that, and that I'm not gonna do. You do that yourself. Go get the proper kind of books and find out what those words mean. But the main thing is, he was thanking God for hiding wisdom from the rulers who were evil, and revealing this hidden wisdom to them, and they called themselves the babes. Jesus called himself and his followers mainly the babes. Babes in knowledge, children, but really babies, okay? Now, you know that they're wrong. That view is incorrect. You know something about the Christian idea of trying to stretch it. Well, there were two advents of Jesus. One was way back then, and the other is to come at the end of the world. That idea is totally incorrect. You got 2 whole thousand years. Okay? It doesn't take a genius to begin to poke holes in that. That there's a lie here, a big one at that. And the base of the lie is the falsehood that the man who was here 2,000 years ago was in fact the Christ. Yes, there are 2 advents, and further on in Paul's writings, you find where they try to deal with what's called the mystery hid in God. And they explain it, and all their scholars explain it on the basis, well, the mystery is what's to be done with the Jews, and there's things that would be worked out in the time period that was not known by the prophets of old. That if you take, and if I use an analogy, if you take a long telephoto lens, say a 400 millimeter lens, and you look, it tends to collapse what you see. If you take a wide angle lens, it stretches what you see. Follow me? I don't know if you've had the experience or not, but if we had a camera, I could show you that. Now, here's the point in saying that. The prophets, they say, this is what the Jewish and mainly the Christian scholars, Jews who became Christians, said by way of explanation, because they had to explain and make sense out of what the prophets said when after the last of those followers died. Do you remember the statement? Let me interrupt myself. Do you recall Jesus saying, there's some of you standing here that will not taste of death till you see the kingdom be fully established? Now those followers died off, and then when the last one died, how were they going to deal with it? You almost never see that written up in Christian writings. They gloss over that. They don't deal with that. Because if to pick that point up means you got a big problem. Did Jesus make a mistake? There's some of you standing here that will not taste the death. You won't die. Some of you will die, but some of you will still be alive, and you witness the establishment of the kingdom, and didn't happen. That's the same as the Jesus figure saying, well, how's it go? Heaven and earth will pass away, but not my words. Something like that. Do you remember that? Well, there's an example of his words failing. Heaven and earth didn't pass away. So what happened? How should we look at that? Huh? Right there, that's the problem, isn't it? It's a problem for white theologians. Most of our people, most black people are not theologians. You're not taught theology. How the hell are you going to say you're taught theology and you don't know who you are? Right. You go into the theological seminary, your name is Jones. You come out of the seminary, your name is still Jones. So that, you didn't get nothing. Now, and if you don't know who you are, you can never perceive anything correctly. Nothing. Nothing of significance. Now, this is what I'm getting at. This is one way. I'm trying to show you one way of getting into the deeper aspects or an aspect of the teaching that most of us mistreat or act spooky by. I hope to stomp on some of the spook in the next hour or two. Ain't nothing about this teaching spooky. And I personally resent, nobody does it in my face because I would verbally beat you up. You know, egghead. We used to be called eggheads in Phoenix, but I want you to know during a certain amount of years, as Minister Farrakhan said, the Phoenix Mosque was the mosque that led the nation in love, study, and what? Productivity. And we were not a bunch of eggheads sitting up all day studying. We did a lot of that because we knew we were ignorant. And when you know that you have a need and the means of satisfying that need is available, then you go after it. Have you ever been hungry? What happens when they put you before the food and prayer set? Do you eat casually or do you eat like a hungry person? I made my point now. Now, we may have to do this blackboard thing in 2 stages, or maybe I'll divide the board in half. And it's small, so I need really about a 7-foot board to put all of it on there, but we do the best we can. The main thing is remember, what would happen if we all left this meeting and came back tomorrow, or overnight, our memory went? You ever had a hard drive crash? What happens? It's gone. Suppose we came back tomorrow, our memory went so bad, we forgot where the mosque is. Memory is like a thing that holds your knowledge, right? Now, but I said to sister, I want you to get the point. I want you to listen very carefully. Don't say he's smart. I'm not smart. I spent a little bit more time hitting the books than you did, that's all. And I want to show you how it's not as complicated as you think. And you got no business being in the nation year in and year out, and you as dumb now as when you came in. That's why you go to the grave and you give people hard times.
That's right.
You may not know it or like it, but it's immaterial to me. Minister Farrakhan regards this man over here, this brother right here, as one of his best ministers. No, don't clap, stop.
Right,
don't even do it. Right. I don't need to hear it.
Right.
He don't need to hear it.
Right.
He's not that kind of brother. What you need is more work. But your work would be more effective if your knowledge was broader, deeper, wider. And if your love level was broader, deeper, wider. You will not be ever able to love beyond your knowledge. Any of you brothers in here married to any of you sisters on this side? Any of you sisters married to any brothers on this side? Did you get married on the basis of ignorance? You didn't? You got married on the basis of what you knew. You found out more things later on. But you got married on the basis of knowledge, mutual knowledge, right? And what you knew about each other and whatnot, you dug it, so you got married. You didn't get married on the basis of mutual hate, did you? Knowledge and love. Can you love beyond what you know? Now you can lie. Yeah, you can lie. Or you can say, well, I'm infatuated. Infatuated meaning you're making up stuff. Got me? You must not be infatuated with this teaching. You gotta know it before you can love it. And I hope I make it bluntly clear why you're here. Not this meeting today, but why are you in the nation? Did you know the reason why light lay first in somebody else's head? Did you hear what I just said? The reason that you're in the nation was first in somebody else's head. You gradually grow to find out what was in their mind. I'm talking about the mind of God. You did not come on your own. We touched that last night. You did not come here on your own. You can think that Mary Lou or brother so-and-so brought you in. Allah brought you in. He chose you before you were born. That's in the book. One of the ideas we got to stomp out of our nation so we can grow is this stupid jackass kind of thought that Elijah Muhammad and Louis Farrakhan are the only two that God knew and everybody else is a guess. You're insulting the mind of the Supreme Being. Yes, and you're casting aside the intelligence of the prophets. Not so much the prophets, but the gods that educated them. We got to grow up. And you can't grow up being afraid of information. Okay? Now, before we get over here to the blackboard, what's going to move? This thing will move, right? Okay. Now, listen, brothers and sisters. This Jesus figure said what? And Paul said the same thing. I thank you, Father, God, for revealing what you have hidden. Now, this means what? Let's say we had a room full of Jewish, Christian, Muslim scholars. You've had, all of them would agree that the last 6,000 years, even though they have different calendars, the Jewish calendar is 5,000 and something, the Muslim calendar is whatever it is, 14 plus whatever, the Christians is what it is, okay? And they know none of those calendars are correct, are they? Huh? None of them is correct. The correct calendar is God's calendar. Things didn't begin with the Jewish calendar almost 6,000 years ago. The Christian's calendar 2,000 years ago is incorrect. And the Muslim calendar, these are calendars that mean a certain thing. They're very limited. But this is not the universal calendar, is it? Do you follow what I'm saying? You can't use the Gregorian calendar as the calendar. The Chinese got a calendar, 5,000 something, whatever it may be. These can't be the correct calendar. There had to be a calendar that preceded these calendars, which has to do with time. Time didn't begin when these various groups said. Now, they'll say, well, 6,000 years, Satan has been in power. Nobody argues that. Now, this is not knocking the scholars. They didn't know any better. All of these scholars on earth now draw knowledge from other people who are dead, who lived during Satan's 6,000-year reign of darkness. So whatever they knew, great. But they didn't know enough to free their people. They didn't know enough to overcome Satan's darkness, did they? So, all of what you study, all of whatever we study, I don't care, even in the sciences, they're not pure. All of them are tainted or affected and infected by Satan's rule. Proof, look how people use technology. Most of it is used for evil. I'm glad I don't have to argue this with nobody. That would be a drag. I mean, that would mean we're very ignorant in here. Most technology is used to serve greedy purposes. You don't see where people are made free. There was a report in yesterday's newspaper about the tremendous global abuse of females. There's nothing about the growth of knowledge in this world that makes people happy. The people naturally, if you're a billionaire, you're happy. If you're not dying from something, you're happy. Because you got all this money, your family is tight, you don't have to worry about no bills. In fact, you don't even know how much you're worth. But the majority of people are poor as hell, and in hell, and ignorant, and diseased. So there's nothing about this world that says that the rulers of this world are good people. They're evil people. It's not hard to prove that. Should that be a difficult thing for you and I to see? But some of us in the nation will say yes to things you don't understand. Because you don't do no homework. You come this on Sunday, some of us do. We sit, we listen, and we're coming for entertainment. Damn it, you could have stayed home. All right. And worse than that, you are abusing the purpose for which you were brought here, and that's why you're sad. Somebody brought you into the world. They allowed madness to go in your life. The first 15, 20, 30, whatever years. All the crap you did was done to you. All that was factored in to God's future purpose for you. Then you come to the mosque one day. Every one of us accepted, and we didn't understand what we were accepting, right? Yes. But you just knew, yeah. But you didn't really know what that meant. We didn't understand the greeting. We didn't understand hardly nothing. But we accepted it. And what was done there was somebody helping you at that moment. You didn't see him. Not a spook, but the God where he is and his angels, however he worked it, helped you to get in and get started. For his purpose. And the problem that most of us have is we don't know that, or somebody doesn't tell us about that, so we go through the nation stumbling and bumping our heads, wondering what the hell is going on. You fall out and you're never happy. Some of us in the nation have gone back to bars. And there'll be a lot of found that say, man, what you doing here?
That's right. Oh.
You can never go back to being a Negro and be happy. Impossible. You can try, but there's enough of us that can tell you, don't go there, don't work. You say, well, I'm the exception. And you go out and you come back and tell the rest of us it don't work. Now, can we turn the heat down? I love heat. I love it. But I don't want your discomfort because we got work, we are working. Hey, now what can we do?
Right, where you going? You want to turn it down? To what?
Yeah, to what? That's an important question.
It'll pause and come back on, for some more few seconds.
Well, let's get it cooler than this. But we don't want to get into that danger zone called cold. Black folks do not like cold. But we don't want it so hot in there that it becomes uncomfortable. Some brothers got coats on. I know they're not feeling good. Am I right? Let's be real. See, because your condition will affect how you hear what I'm saying, and I want maximum communication. So let's fix it. Whoever post that is, you fix the heat cold post, okay? Now, a secret is what this book says. This book says the same thing, but it doesn't say it in exactly the same language, okay? Now, since you already know that whole time period was written up by Caucasian scholars to make their point, to present themselves as God's chosen people. Some of them at the beginning were mistaken. Some of them were not mistaken. They were deliberate. You had a mixture of lies, naivety, superstition, a lot of stuff mixed together. White folks have this in books all over this country. their own books by their own scholars, their own TV programs that come on Christmas time and Easter time condemns Christianity as being garbage. And some of them, at the end of their program, they try to soften the blow by saying, well, it doesn't matter ultimately whether we can prove the historical reality of Jesus or this or that or the other. Then they slide with some playful language and get you over into faith. It don't work. If it didn't happen, it's a lie. If it didn't happen and you know it didn't happen, and you're telling the world that something happened that didn't happen, and you know better, then damn it, you're lying. No faith built on a lie is going to last long. Somebody will come along and say poke holes in it, and this teaching is not meant to poke holes in Christianity. If now, on the other hand, you cannot go out into the churches and act stupid and beat up the people because of what you know. You must study Minister Farrakhan's methodology. Remember, this man is programmed and is being guided to gain all the people, and you got to exercise skill, no duplicity, but skill in gaining the people. You follow me? Very difficult job raising the dead. Remember, there are roughly 144,000 people like yourself. You just accept it. And the Holy Quran contains the criticism that would be made of us. In the history of Noah, well, Noah, your followers just accept you on first thought. That's how you did, most of you. Some of y'all fought a little bit, but you didn't fight long. There was just something about this teaching, you just dug it. You don't even know why. You were born to accept it, but you didn't know that. And even now you hear these words, but you still don't know that deep enough, do you? Now here's a key point, brothers and sisters. We first got to grasp the truth of our collective identity before we can get our individual identity. That's a problem we're suffering with in the nation. We don't know, who am I? What was I born to do? And those are legitimate questions. And oftentimes you talk to another brother or sister who is just as ignorant as you are of that important subject, and you don't even know how to get there. You got the 99 names of God, and you don't know how to work that with your personal self. You just know it's over there somewhere in a book. Now, I hope I don't forget to come back to that. If I do, raise the question. Now, you're hard in here. You're uncomfortable. And I'm adding to it by be honest about it. I feel better if you just say, yes, Jabril, we're hot. Okay, now, how long will it take the brother to turn that thing will drop down? What's the temperature right now? We're going to overcome it. We're going to deal with it. But what's the temperature, 90, 85? I want to know. Please, just tell me so I'll know.
You're going to check for his AC, man.
Okay. So, brother, what's the temperature right now? What does that thing say?
It's 86. It probably won't go down under 78 because of the people.
It'll go down to where?
Right. It may go down to 76. The heat probably should have never been turned.
That's okay. All I want to know is the figures. 86 is hot.
Right.
It may go down to 78.
It might.
When? About 10 minutes, a half hour?
An hour if you open the doors.
Open the doors then. Do that. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Let's do just exactly that. You don't have to worry about nobody coming here dealing with us. We've got enough FOI to take care of. Right?
Yes, sir.
So, open the doors. So now you can hang an hour as it gradually drops down, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And we're going to take a break in a minute, and I suggest you get a cool drink rather than hot coffee. Okay? Now, in Cleveland, I brought out this. There's a brother, any of you follow boxing? You ever heard the name Tony Ayala?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm not going to go in as deep into that as I did there. The tapes are available, but there's a point I want to make about him, because he illustrates a lot of us. This man, I used to watch him in the early 80s. He was a ferocious boxer. And then it was about 19 or 20, boom, he got arrested. I mean, he's one of those kind of fighters. Can you imagine yourself with a Joe Frazier and his prime coming at you, snorting and looking all vicious and mean, who's trained for 4 months to beat you up? Or Mike Tyson, coming right at you, the bell sounds, and his aim is to hurt you. It ain't even personal. But he spent 3 or 4 months aiming, focusing his whole mind and getting his body in shape to hurt you. Well, I don't know of any other boxer other than those two that I can compare to Tony Ayala. He was like that, a Mexican brother who was just ferocious, man. I used to look at him, he was so powerful, the presence of him, it was like he was coming off the screen, like when you see Tyson or Frazier in his prime. Well, that's how this man was. Then he gets arrested. He gets arrested for raping a neighbor while his wife was asleep. Next door neighbor. I said, damn, man, that stayed with me for years. And I couldn't find out too much about him. He's out here, he was in a prison, Rahway or somewhere in Jersey, Trenton State. But it's something about that brother got my attention. Well, he got out of jail early last year, went back to boxing. And I saw this magazine called KO. And it was about De La Hoya in Trinidad, but up the top, interview with Tony Ayala. Wow. I started reading it and I couldn't put it down. And what came through was the power of that young man's mind. He's about 36, 37 now. Power came right through the page. He grew tremendously. And in it, you learn that his concern was not, the fact that his boxing career was over. His next fight was going to be for the title. His concern, what blew him away, what had him all upset, was he messed up with his family. He blew it with his family. He contemplated suicide. And the only thing from all the reports I've read that stopped him from suicide was, how the hell did I get like this? The article showed about some other problems he had in his life when he was younger. Went to a woman's bathroom in a public place and beat up some woman. What's wrong with this dude? That's the question. That question and the pursuit of the answer saved his own life. And one day in therapy, I don't know how long he went, whoever was with him had to be long suffering to suffer through. It's finally coming to the point where he dug into his past and dug up something he had thought he had buried forever. When he was around 9 years old, he was abused by a male friend of the family. Went on for about a year. And he overcame that with some physical retaliation. What he did, he didn't want to go into it, but he threw something at the person. Whatever he did, it stopped. And then he buried it. But it sent him, as he said, the wrong message. And the way to get what I want is through physical. I'll make you do what I want. And this put him on a life of petty crime. And then got into drugs and heroin. And some drugs, I don't know all the drugs, and meth and heroin, I think. And then finally, of course, committed this rape and went to prison. What's so important about this? What I was struck by was he began to be healed when he actually saw what had happened. He had to confront something that was extremely embarrassing. He dealt with this person who evidently was somebody he could trust, a therapist, and he got over it. Well, we dealt with this in Cleveland. The names are not important, but there were believers in the audience who had suffered certain things in their past, and that goes for every one of us. And that crap back there that happened, we make the huge mistake of taking as part of our identity the things that happened to us. What happened to you is not part of your identity. That's something that happened to you. We were all enslaved. You follow me? That doesn't mean your middle name today is Anthony Slave Jones or Mary Slave Muhammad. You follow me? That's a condition. Certainly. This was terribly abusive. Certainly. Things happen to all of us as individuals. If those things didn't happen, brothers and sisters, you and I would not be a part of the people called lost and dead. Part of what made us lost and dead, in fact, all of what made us lost and dead, are the bad things that happened to us, our parents, and going on back for the last 400 some odd years. Do you see my point? You gotta separate yourself from the things that happened to you. Sisters are victims all over America of incest. But that's not you. You don't take the mindset of the person that's abusing you as your self-concept.
Right.
A man goes to you, brother, with a 45, puts it in your mouth. Give me your money. You give him the money. He lets you live. He goes about his business. Now, that idea, you don't walk around like this, do you?
No, sir.
It sounds ridiculous? No, it's not ridiculous. You don't walk around with your finger like a fake gun stuck in your mouth. Look at Christianity. The cross. People wear the cross, don't they?
Yes, sir.
Something that happened to your Savior. It's a very subtle way of inducing people to accept. Okay. It's a very subtle way of getting people to subtly accept as part of your identity what happened to your Savior so that you will accept that too. They have really done a hell of a job on us. And the white people are so skillful. They make things seemingly complicated, like making money. You go to school and you study business. It's complicated. You get out of school, it ain't that hard at all. When you find out what's really going on, it's just straight up stealing, right? I mean, it ain't complicated. And the good principles are a facade, a front. Any area you want, they make it seem so hard. I've been in the penitentiary. Some of you brothers have. Some of you may have been in the military. How many of you sisters have been in the military? 1, 2. Look, when the white man got something he wants you to do, you get trained fast. I learned how to run a 150-pound jackhammer right now. You do it now or you go to the hole. But if I was on the streets working construction, you got to go to this therapy school and this and that and theory school, I meant to say. It's going to take you 6 months. Ain't nothing to it but stay there and try not to get run over by it and do it. I didn't even weigh 150 pounds, but 142 at that time. But I did it or go to the hole. Why? Because what's the guy over the prison? The warden. He wanted a boat launch. So we the slaves at that time, we make him a boat launch. You see my point? In the army and in the military, in the prison, when they want you to learn something, it's fast. I learned some things I learned in the hospital when I was in prison that I know I could not do on the street. You know? There's no way. You have to go to school, you gotta go. No, we need this now. Here's how you do it now. Most dependently if you don't want to do it. Well, you go to the hole. That's very cut and dried, right? In the service, same thing. When it's in wartime, you learn fast. When it's not wartime, it's going to take you 8 years to learn that. It's cold-blooded. They play games all the time. Games, well, technology. And there's scientists at it. And it's still going on with young brothers and sisters are being diverted away from what you really want to do. We have to have our own schools all over America. Now, another point I want to make, that I'm hitting this very fast because of the lack of time. Now, what I just covered so far regarding the scripture and that route, why was this hidden? That ties into the next major point. But as I go to the next major point, I stuck in this piece about Tony Ayala. Now, when he overcame, when he finally realized what he did, he became a help to a lot of other inmates in prison because he was free. And brothers and sisters, you got to deal. That's what these Friday night sessions are so important. How dare you not come to therapy class? Don't you know Muhammad's Mosque is, among other things, an outpatient clinic, isn't it? Yes, isn't it? Yes, it's an emergency ward, but it's also outpatient clinic. It's an educational facility for new knowledge, isn't it? Yes, it's a lot of different things, but it's also a place where we get therapy. And Friday is therapy night. How dare you not come? It's superior to AA or the dope thing. It is superior. And the proof that is so valuable, I make this one point to cover 2 points. To show the value of these sessions, that God is present. Some of you have had the experience of, in your mind, criticizing somebody else. In your mind, you call them a name. She or he thinks more of themselves than they should, or whatever you said. Or you had some criticism for them. In your mind, you didn't tell nobody, but Allah heard you. And 2 or 3 weeks or a month will pass, and he will put in the mind of the person who you dogged in your mind an answer to a problem you had. to compel you to respect and look deeper at that brother and sister that you were dogging in your mind a few weeks earlier. To make you to realize, look, I'm here. It's true that when 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I'm here. I'm here to help all of you. God is present. You don't have to be walking around this room to be present. Do you hear what I've just said? Yes. That's a small, but yet really a big example of the need we have for one another. Allah sent everybody who was here, the Almighty Muhammad and the minister, both used the word sent. You didn't send yourself. I don't care who was the person that talked to you about coming. Somebody else sent you. Oh, I wish you could see that. That we could spend the rest of the afternoon dealing with. I gotta move on. Now, did any of you ever see the programs white folks have on the History Channel and Discovery Channel and whatnot, where they go back so far in their history and they run into a wall of utter darkness. They go back so far in their books and then they begin guessing. But he tries to guess with bravado. He puts down his guesses with macho talk, but he don't know what the hell he's talking about. Because if you ever interact with him, how do you know that? I'm not doubting you. I want to know how you came by it so I can travel that road too. Well, he don't have no answer for you. You know, Spielberg made a lot of movies off of Jurassic Park because people are ignorant. If people knew that was nothing but a big lie, would they go? Yes. The way this world is fixed up, they'd go anyway. Now, I want you to think about whatever you know about, I guess this is going to be long enough. And brother, does the chalk right? And does the black? Now, look, first point, make this very, very clear. When you look at white folks, let's set aside for about a minute what we've learned in this teaching. You know from all that you know, white folks go back so far and stop, and we've been their students.
Right.
We gonna argue about that?
Right.
Fine. We save a lot of time there. Now, deduce that there at least was animals and it was green, it was rich in the Sahara Desert. Well, they don't know how it became the Sahara Desert. They have guesses. And you gotta read what they say carefully. Because this man, the white people, for the most part, are people, and a lot of us are like them, even in the nation. We don't like to say, I don't know. We just don't like to say, I don't know. What's your problem? When somebody asks me, it's mentally healthy to say, I don't know. You saved an awful lot of time. You walk around, in your head, you should know what you know from what you don't know. What you don't know is not in your head. Not the imaginary stuff that you think you know, or you want other people to think this, that, and the other. You want to look good. You look better by saying, I don't know. Let's go both and find out. Okay? If you don't know anything, just say it. I don't know anything. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You have just made a profound statement of truth. I don't know. But you also put yourself in a position to grow. But as soon as you start hemming and hawing and start theorizing, and a sharp-eyed person looking at you, right away their mind starts saying, oh, I'm going to get the hell out of here. All I'm going to do is waste my time now. What I'm touching is this. I've seen it. Maybe you have seen it. And if you haven't, we need to find the video and show it because it's very profound. And I don't have, these few words that I'm speaking cannot possibly get across to you the full impact of what I'm trying to say, but I'll say it anyway. That the white people they look at monuments. Among the most outstanding is the pyramids. And they say, look, these things that we know we did not make, our ancestors didn't make it. And we don't know how to duplicate them. Our technology now will not enable us to build that. This means there were some people here a long time ago, back before the wall of our ignorance, where we can't see beyond, who built this. They, therefore, were smarter than us. What happened to them? You got that point? Now that's the essence of what they say in a lot of their programs, and they're saying it in this magazine very indirectly. But I've seen programs where they where the scholars took their time and laid this thing out. Now, suppose you were a white person and you love your country and you don't care too much about black people. You can tolerate them at a distance, not too many at a time. And you're watching a program like this. And then you hear Elijah Muhammad, Louis Farrakhan, and they help us out there talking about being here or having a connection with the people that built the things that he don't know how they were built. Now, how his mind is set up determines whether he'll pay attention or not. This is key. We don't have I got the CIA tape, but if we can't do it, we didn't have a chance to cue it up. But what I will do is this: if we can cue it up overnight, there's a small section I want you to see, and if it can't be done, no problem. I'll give it to Brother Minister, make a copy, and you'll pick a time to go and watch it. But you need to watch this CIA piece that was on Discovery Channel the other night. They were talking about the fact-gathering capacity of America. She is bad. She's very bad. But if you start off wrong in the research process, you wind up in left field. Leaving that aside, the important thing is you're either going to be the kind of white person that will listen and say, "Oh, could this be?" If you're a high-ranking Shriner, you'll have a different attitude in contrast to a stupid Peter King. When you see a person like Peter King run his mouth at the minister, you deal with him and let him go. There's a couple of brothers and there's some white folks writing books right now. Some of the believers are getting all upset about him. Why should you be? Why should you be upset about a person you know is lying? You study upon how to overcome them. I wrote something in the paper that may help. I'll read it to you later on. But you don't get all upset about somebody who you know is lying, that research is all off and whatnot. You know that's not going to last long. And if you go to the various meetings where such people are, don't you know they're government officials there? When I see certain writings that are so far off the mark, where they mix events that I know, because I've lived through it, didn't happen at the same time. When they have dates all off, I say to myself, these white people are using this Negro to draw Muslims out and to measure us, to see how strong or weak we are. I saw one sister got all upset. She read a book recently about what a Negro wrote. And she wanted to fight, and I listened to her carefully. I said, "Sis, you sound like a person about to jump in the water where the alligator is with your 2-inch knife. You're going to get ate up." Let me know when you get about to turn it over, brother, okay? Let me know. Whenever you get ready to turn it over, let me know and I'll stop. Because you don't want to miss nothing if it's going to be of any value at all. See, you don't get upset. You study up on how to deal with it. Do you think Master Farad Muhammad, if you really believe and you know anything about him at all, do you think that he's up there on the plane all tore up about Megiddo's book? This white man who wrote The Prophet of Rage? A man who just lied in his book. Lied about a meeting with me that never took place. He's a liar. Not told lies, he is a liar. When you write a book, we have a right to think that you do your homework. It's not like an article you dashed off under pressure. And these big companies also have lawyers that check out this, that, and the other. When I see a book filled with all kind of crap in it, I know this is designed that little Negro may get over and vent his spleen and whatnot, but don't get all upset about it. I don't want to spend time with it. Don't get upset about that. You're missing the point. Find out about the person that spent the money to finance it. What was their motivation? You think the government don't want to get rid of Muslims? There's no kind of way to get rid of us. Go study the Roman general Titus, how he tricked the Jews by putting plants among them. We have plants among us, we got plants on the outside. It's easy to overcome plants on the inside of the nation. Did you know that? Outgrow them. Think beyond them. Grow beyond them. Love beyond them. A brother or a sister who is a plant is a stunted human being. If the believers grow, then they'll stand out like a sore thumb, or they'll try to get their faith together, or they'll leave. But if you stay on the same ignorant level, year in and year out, you're as dumb now as you was last year. no growth. Miss half the meetings in the year. Don't even understand what this is about. Then you are an indirect helper of the agents. They go back and they report on you. Sister so-and-so, brother so-and-so is dumb now. It wasn't last year. Man, you gotta worry about that. And if you have no agents in your mouth, that means you're taking care of no business at all. And I know with this master taking care of business, even though you're not taking care of the business like you should, and like you're capable of, I know you got agents here. And you don't really need them. The white man can press button. They told me CIA is Langley is 25 miles away. They don't even need no agents here. Your agent up in your house, a bug right in your house. Yeah, I'm gonna say something later on that you're not gonna like too much, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Let's divide this in half, okay? Let's pretend this is two blackboards, okay? Now, let's call this now. And the center person, these from our point of view, here now is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
The believers in general. Okay. And those people yet to come. Now, if it's true, and it is, that the Caucasians are not able to figure out how to make these various monuments, especially the pyramids. And again, I don't know what, our knowledge is probably not equal in this room on that subject. But I know what I have seen. You know, I don't know the technology, but I know I've seen where white people say they've gone in their computers and tried to match it and they can't do it. Now the question next is, the ancestors of pardon me, the people who are there any, let me put it in a very simple way. Is there anybody on earth now who has the knowledge that those people back then had? Or did it all stop? Is there anybody that knows how to make those things? That means that knowledge would have to have been handed down. That means people are walking around here knowing stuff and they ain't telling nothing. And you would not even recognize them. And the fact is that's true. I'm not trying to sound smart, because I'm just passing on something I heard. And like Muhammad said to me one day at dinner, he said, brother, there are people who go to Al-Azhar who are 300 years old. Now, you don't know what a 300-year-old person looks like. I'll say it again. Yeah, he said that to me, to my face. Just like he said to me another time, in the hereafter, there'll be sisters who give birth to 75, 100, 125 children. Some sisters wrote me letters, brother, was that a misprint? That's what he told me. Why did I even mention it? Because you sisters think in certain areas of your life just like a white woman. You think you gotta have this menopause stuff. How about that woman up there in Yakima, Washington? She gave birth to twins. She didn't take triplets. She didn't take no crap that white folks give you. You think like white women. You got 4,000 or 5,000 eggs or whatever it is to begin with, and the way we live, you in your 40s, 50s, the eggs are all gone. You programmed to think like them and do like them, and then all of a sudden you say, well, it's all over. That's what you say. Now you're in the presence of somebody that can build a brand new universe from scratch, from nothing. So the more you get into this teaching, you start talking about what's impossible. Ain't but three things impossible. When you sure enough dead, you're out of here forever. God cannot lie, and to be born, you gotta have a mother and a father. Everything else can get here. Now, brothers and sisters, how far back? This is an important point. I'm making it simple, but it's important. Either it's yes or no. Is there anybody around this earth now who knows how those things were made? If they are, they're not but so old. They ain't 6,000, 7,000-year-old people. They had to get that knowledge from somebody who passed it down, So you wind up with a handful of people on this earth who know stuff and ain't telling nobody. That's important. Now you work with that for a moment, or later on, put that in the back of your mind and chew on that. The hydraulics, down like Muhammad told us that the Egyptian brothers, scientists used, will be put in force later on, after these people's power has been broken. But you know, my God, how smart do you have to be to put all those big stones together with no glue to make the pyramids? No glue. And when I was 16 years old, we were taught in school that, well, they use slave labor. They don't talk that foolishness anymore. It's impossible. How would men have gotten, how could they have gotten that top stone up there? There was no place for nobody to stand. It's silly. They don't talk that stupidity anymore. They know better than that. And you see where Caucasians are always drilling and digging where darker people live.
Right.
Because they are intelligent enough to know that that's where the action is. The stuff that happened that was here before we got here. They go so far, again, I keep repeating this, because so many of us come into the nation and we grow slow. And you hold on to concepts that were lies. And you'll slow to let them go. Look, let me talk about myself bad for a minute. When I was coming into the nation in 1954, I was about a month and a half just coming. Just taking out my letter, but it hadn't passed yet. And Malcolm was taking us down to the Museum of Natural History, New York City. And there were some things he showed us that blew us away. I mean, heavy stuff that he had been made aware by his teacher. And there was one section that had these prehistoric people. And I ran my mouth and blurted out my mouth from some stuff I read in some book that I knew nothing about. And Malcolm, there's about 80 people there. Malcolm looked at me and said, it's better to keep your mouth. How did he put that? If you don't know what you're talking about, keep your mouth shut. But he said it loud and strong. Have you ever been embarrassed? Would your ears feel funny, the back of your neck? I felt all of, I can talk about it easier now, that's way back then. But I felt embarrassed. I never said nothing else. Then later on, I got an Air for Y, and Captain Shaw said this to us. It is better to keep your mouth shut and be thought a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. These two were big lessons in my life. Big lessons. So it's better to know. If you don't know, don't say nothing. Somebody asks you, why don't you say anything? Because I ain't got nothing to say. Until you all say enough for me to learn something from it. You got that, sisters and brothers? Yes, don't feel bad because you're ignorant. Feel bad if you don't want to grow. Next year, this time, or 4 or 5 months, next week from now, you ain't read nothing, you're not trying to learn nothing. And if you don't know how to read, well, you got brothers and sisters that can set up a class and teach us how to read. You just automatically do that. We used to do it years ago through the Secretary of State. Don't allow nobody to be in the mouth ignorant. And we wouldn't allow you to talk. Because when I was the secretary, I would ask you straight up in a nice way, if you can't read and write, we'll tighten you up on that. And I'd go and I'd check you out. And if I find you was a functional illiterate, I didn't know how to do it, but I had brothers and sisters that could teach you. We make you overcome that stuff about what you don't know. You hear me? Yes, sir. You don't get into this groove about, I don't want nobody to know how ignorant I am. Now you stay that way forever. Right. And you don't make the hereafter because you can't read the lessons. You're fake it. You're not going to see the hereafter ignorant about the lesson. Did you know that? Huh? That's real, huh? I mean, suppose part of making it is somebody asks you to recite it and then comment intelligently, and you can't do it. I don't say how it's going to be exactly, I don't know, but I want to put that on your mind. If you're ignorant of the lessons, you can forget it. That's cold. You ain't thought about it like that, huh? But can we move that one? Let's lift this piece here up over the flag or put the national under it or whatever, right here. Put it over this one right there. There. Now, I did it as fast as I could to get to this particular point. But that's two ways to come at it. Through the Bible, that says, thank you for revealing to us what was hidden. And you know that's really talking about now. Not talking about back then. Connected with the end of time is the revelation of knowledge that is a major factor in bringing about the end of the time of those who have been ruling through lies or ignorance, pretended ignorance that they pass off as knowledge. Okay, you know, you probably most of you know something about the Middle Ages, how superstitious white folks were. Huh? 400 or 500 years ago, Columbus. How advanced intellectually were white people? They were loaded down with superstition, were they not? And yet they ran all over the world and stomped on everybody, didn't they? Despite how ignorant they were, despite how filled with superstition they were. they ran things. A lot of them believed that the earth was flat, held up by elephants. But that didn't stop them from stomping on everybody else, did it? I mean, you should study all of that. Now let's get all that to come to this. Now, we've been taught that way back yonder, way on back, before you could count, a black man formed himself, and that was the first God. You all have heard that, right? Yes, sir. Look, I cannot draw this. I have to do this symbolically. But you know that he started as a point, as one atom. And he made a movement. Well, it's like this. Something like this. First of all, preceding the formation of this atom was the gathering together of specks, less than specks, parts, called 10, that we have in our lessons 10,000 parts, right? You remember that statement? Maybe you also saw it in Theology of Time in the June or July, one of his speeches. And he gathered himself together. And by the way that Elijah Muhammad ran that down was so powerful. He ran that down in relation to us. He said he was teaching us that to help us see who we are today. Huh? Why? I mean, to teach black people their identity, you go all the way back to the beginning. That's you, sister, you, brother, each one of us. To understand who you and I are, you got to go all the way back to the Gideon. And this was the Gideon. These parts came together. Now, the white people teach, and they're correct, as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if they're wrong, that the strongest force in creation is called what? The strong force. It's the force that holds the nucleus of an atom together. The electron goes around the nucleus, which is made up mainly of the proton and the neutron. Is that correct? And a whole lot of other little parts. That's the strong force. Gravitation is a strong force, but it's not as strong as this force. And you know, when you pull apart the nucleus of an atom, what happens? Atom bomb. If you and I could take one hydrogen atom right now in this room and pull it apart, everybody in here is dead. And beyond this room is too small. Several, 10, 15, 20 rooms this side, we all would be dead. Or if you go the other way and fuse it. But let's forget that for a moment. A hand grenade blows apart. Heat and light, short duration, right? A bomb, heat and light, longer duration, destructive, blows apart. You get the concept? That's, are you with me? Yes, now, sisters and brothers, if you're a little sleepy, here's what I advise you to do. We'll take a break in about 5 minutes. But I want you to sit crooked in your chair. Sit in an uncomfortable fashion. That helps you stay awake. Okay? Okay? I don't want you sleeping on me. All that I've said to get you up to this point. I don't want you going nodding off on me, then you wake back up as if you already was awake, and I'm looking at you. And I know you didn't get the point. Then I got to go back just to talk to you. And the rest say, well, why is he repeating it? I'm repeating it for that sister or brother that's nodding on me. Okay? Clear now? Yes, sir. Now, look. So, first it made a straight line, and then it curved and made a 6. We were all taught about the 1 and the 6 being the two big numbers in the beginning. God's own motion is mathematics. He created mathematics as he moved. And let me give you a very simple example. Brothers, I worked once for a few weeks as a janitor between jobs in Michigan, Lansing, Michigan. It was a place called Fisher Body where they made cars. And the brother back then was telling me, he said, watch the white men on the catwalk. He said they especially studied the brothers and how the brothers would move. And they watch you making the moves easier to produce more efficiency. Because if it's not a certain way, you find another way to do it. Because our body mechanics is superior to the other fellas. If we're not too drunk ourselves. And so they study you. Then they come down with a piece of paper. Here's how we want y'all to do it. And you're not aware that you're doing it already. They do this all the time. Then they go off somewhere and write a book and get paid. Don't they do it? Now, so when the first man got started, he's producing mathematics with his movement. I don't care how much mathematics you all may know. you don't know enough math. Your own body. Just forget your brain. Your own body contains or involves mathematics way beyond the mathematics of this world. Way beyond. Well, should we prove that in a second, indirectly or directly? So now you got your 1, your 6, you got a 0, and I'm not going to go no further with that. Now, look. You know, time is not linear, right? I drew a line, but time is not linear. It's cyclical, isn't it? Isn't it? Are we on a ball called the Earth? Is it not spinning on its own axis, excuse me, and going around the Earth, is it not? Huh? Time is cyclical. Time is motion, it's cyclical. Around and around and around. Now, but I'm using linear because it's easy for us to see that, but you know this is symbolic of movements like this. Cyclical and yet going in a certain direction. Moving in a certain direction, though cyclical. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, so now here we have this first man. Boom, he's here. Now, what happened next? I'm going to stop because I want to read you something about it. I hope I brought it with me, Lord. If I didn't, then I got to go in the computer and read it out of that, but I want to do that. Hold on just 1 second. I just want to be sure I did not mess up. I got it. Praise the Lord. Now, I wrote an article some time ago, volume 15, number 27. How was the first black woman produced? I'm not smart. That's from the teachings of Elijah Muhammad and sitting and thinking on it and studying men and women, just looking at us and thinking. If you don't think, you don't grow. But how are you going to think? With a whole lot of emotional baggage? Number 18 study guide. Some of us spent 5 years on it, right? Some ain't grown at all. You got some brothers still want 15 and 20 wives. And you're insane. I might not meet none of you brothers, of course. Out of your mind. Let me give you a small example. We got about 2 minutes to go before this break. Have you ever thought about, let's say you got 15 wives. 4 of them are due to give birth to a child 3:30 in the morning. All 4 of them. Which room do you go to first, brother? You got a problem. The other 4 want to go on vacation, and the other 3 want to go shopping at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, opposite parts of town. How long would your mind last? When you're out of town, we're told, go bring your wife back a gift. But now your money is funny. You cannot not give the sister something, because you're going to wonder, did you give the other ones? Now, that's a problem for your mind, huh? We got brothers in the nation right now picking out sisters they want. You're out of your damn mind, man. These women can think, first of all. Suppose they all teamed up on you and they all make a list. These ones will not, no sister will marry these. And you on the list. I'm giving some suggestions. I want you to think. We're stupid the way we're dealing with this. The way we handle it is stupid. And sisters sitting there hollering about you mastering study guide 18. You don't know nothing about Sister Clara Muhammad, but you're measuring, you're trying to put yourself in her place, so you say, and dealing with Elijah Muhammad in your mind based on the bad experiences you had with men. So damn it, you spent 5 years and you went nowhere. Am I right? Rising into the mind of God with what? The same damn baggage you came into the nation with. And Allah don't admit you. He ain't gonna let that crap come in his mind. You can't rise into his mind with jackassedness. You give it some fancy name, but that's all it boils down to. Please. I'm gonna get to the next point about the sisters. Because we got to grow beyond. Mr. Farrakhan wants an FOI. That's the new FOI. He wants it built on listen at this, on the principle that men are the maintainers of women. That means more than money. You hear that on that side, brothers? We still the rulers now, but we want some respect, but we realize we ain't where we should be. And we need lots of help. So God has to help us, and the sisters have to help us. we getting ready to deal with something. You can run out if you want to, but I'm going to be here by the help of Allah until 4 to 4:30. Now, I must say this. Part of what helped me, I don't feel good physically. But when you get started with this, the Spirit of God takes over. And you forget about it. I just hope I have enough juice later on tonight to watch the fight. Hope I have. If I don't, I don't. But I'm going to put this point on your mind. I had the opportunity to talk with the minister this morning. Calling his house, trying to reach Sister Sophia about something. Sister Khadijah answered the phone, and I talked with her a minute, then I talked with the minister. He is such a beautiful man. And I kissed him on his cheek through the phone. I said, did you feel it? He said, was that what that was? He has a very quick mind. He has a quick mind. I'm thinking about 4 or 5 things that we went over in the course of the conversation. But please, Allah, I'm leaving here and going there Tuesday. And I want to know what kind of message should I carry in? I'm going to ask you on tomorrow from the whole area. You got this city and this other area, because I got something to put on your collective minds tomorrow. Right on your, at the very beginning, at the top of the subject. But I want you to bring dead. If you don't worry about the dead. You don't know what people will accept. I know what I do. By the help of Allah, some of the subjects you might consider way out there, the dead understand that they accept it. I want some dead out there. You know what a dead man is? You already know what that is? You know how to identify them?
Say it again.
You're going to see some out here tomorrow. Don't tell me about how cold it is. I'm not interested in that. If they were passing out $1,000 bills tomorrow, everybody would get here, right? If you had to come in your pajamas, so people would make it anyhow. People want money. What we have is way better than money. So let's stop for about 15 minutes. Get yourself together. It's about, that thing says, okay, let's say around 11:35. Let's say at 10 minutes to the hour, you're back in the seat, sitting down. If you have your coffee or your juice with you, fine, but don't make a nuisance. Don't spill nothing. Just be as intelligent as we've been so far. And don't forget the temperature. What's the temperature now, big brother?
George?
What's the temperature? Count. Check quick. Double time, triple time. It was 86, it's now down to... It took a long time.
78.
Okay, that make you happy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now it's dropped down to 78. We're gonna make it. All right, thank you very much. 15 minutes and be seated. Asalaam alaikum.
Asalaam, sir.
Asalaam alaikum. Now, I took my time trying to get up to where we are. Minister Kadir, this is you. Now, I want to start with this point about the woman. And these 2 articles you probably already read. It doesn't mean you necessarily remember it all, because it was quite a while ago. But volume 15, number 27, I wrote it May 8th, 1998. Now, this first man produced himself. Pardon me? No, it was 98. Yeah, I guess it was 98. May 8th, 1998. That's when I wrote it. The day I write the article is not the day it's going to appear, but volume 15, number 27. Now, this is out of context in the sense that I was writing a series. I don't recall how many on a certain point. So I'm plucking this article out of the 5 or 6 that I wrote because of its connection with what we're dealing with right now. I'm going to read it with minimum or hopefully no comment. This continues a brief commentary on the relevance of the root of God's wisdom, revealed through the Messiah, effectively borne witness to by the Messiah's Messiah, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, for us today. Central to this commentary is that no people or nation can be free and independent as long as their women are in the hands of their enemies, regardless to the extent. Nor will the men of that people or nation allow men from another nation or people to mistreat their women without a fight to the death, unless the men have been thoroughly deceived and robbed of the knowledge and love of themselves. We were so soundly put to sleep here in America that the most powerful truth God could generate and reveal was required to raise us from our grave of ignorance. That's serious, huh? Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Even then, he will have to whip us to fully get us up. Yet the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has referred to this teaching as a wake-up message and the kindergarten of God's knowledge. What must the rest of his wisdom be? Mr. Kadir, did you happen to have a copy of This Is the One? There's something in there I'm going to need right now. I'm sorry I didn't bring it with me. In fact, I don't even have a copy of that book. In fact, it's out of print. And we'll talk about that later. Thank you. Now, Master Farad Muhammad taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad the secret knowledge of God, which has been a secret for the past 66 trillion years. And you said, sister, and some of you said 2.64 billion men acted as judge over 2.64 billion writings. This doesn't count the other 11. Huh? Now you're talking about a large number of men, all of whom were so disciplined they kept the knowledge of who is who secret. The 12 minor evidently don't know, because the way he put it in the writings that we have, you can find it in page 61 through 74 of Our Savior Has Arrived, where he's dealing with God in 7 articles. It appeared in New York, Amsterdam News, 1957. You have it in your home. That book, Our Savior Has Arrived, don't you?
Yes, sir.
There he says, you have, and also page 100 to 122 of Message of the Black Man, 12 major, 12 minor scientists, 12 major, the other 11 know who the one is. I don't know what the other 11 or 12 know. I don't know nothing about that. I don't know why they don't know. All I know is that they got it down to just 12 men, and it's never more than 12. And when one gets ready to die, he produces a son through a black woman, right? No other way to get a son. You can't go pop. And then he trains that son now. You say, how do you train him? What kind of training is that? I hope to show you a connection between that kind of training and that what that male-female relationship had to be, and how that connects with the sign that we were given of the stupendous power of our people in the Million Man March. Just hold tight. They're connected in the course of the next few hours. In essence, it was that man is God and God is a man. That the first life in space, before there was a universe, was a black man. The universe and the powers which uphold it were created by a black man, and it is upheld today by a black man. God revealed to a black man that he was and is God. But for what? First, it was to make the man to whom this wisdom was revealed a God too. Later, and through him, it is to produce a nation of gods. God had a beginning. Before him, there was nothing. He taught us that God taught him that there is yet, however, something in space which he described by the word force and by a few other terms. He said that this force is still present in space today. Okay, now that says what? It's something like your subconscious. White people teach that your subconscious is neutral. Lie. Lie. Your subconscious goes, leans in a certain direction. Hanif, or how you pronounce that in Arabic, upright. But it leans in a certain direction, and that can be proven, and that's so important. Well, that's it. That's a little bit too far beyond where I want to get, but I'll get to that later on. God had a beginning. before him there was nothing. He taught us that God taught him that there is yet, however, something in space which he described by the word force and by a few other terms. He said that this force is still present in space today. Caucasian scientists think they have discovered this force through deduction in the early 1930s, which they call dark matter. And some of you ought to look on the internet, and they have one thing I found where they deal with the Hubble space. They have a square box, and one thing I looked at, dark matter. They had a black cube, dark matter, black, jet black. It's like there was nothing on the page, yet you had a black cube. Now, they think it was out of this dark matter that the first life and all else came. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the first life began as a single atom. It made movements that formed the basis of mathematics. 1, 6, and 0 were involved as it continued rotating and building itself up in space. The power, direction, and purpose of the motion of this life came from within it. Isn't that the way it was with you? Huh? Wasn't it? The movements that you made when you were from the point of conception onward came from inside of yourself. Right? That says what? Our Savior has arrived, pages 110 through, I think, 135, somewhere around there. That's bearing witness to the way it was in the beginning. The power, direction, and purpose. The power, direction, and purpose. The power, direction, and purpose of the motion of this life came from within it. How long it took, we do not know. But what eventually emerged from that which was built up from that first atom was a black man. We don't know how long it took him to create himself, for Allah had not yet laid the base for counting time like we have it today. That was to come later, after his creation of the sun. It took a certain amount of time for him not only to produce brains, but for those brains to become mature enough for him to experience consciousness. Let's stop right there. Prior to becoming conscious, he did a pretty good job, didn't he? Does not that point out that subconsciousness in the original people has to be what it was in the one from whom we came? I want you to think on it. Think on it. You can't be other than what he was from whom we came. That's his nature. If you're from him, then you have that nature. You and I are not a grafted people. Simple? Clear? Do you understand it? If you don't, say so. Okay, good. We've learned that this first man experienced pain, exactly what kind I don't know, due to the process of his own self-creation. But we do know from this teaching that he was confronted by problems resulting from his own supreme creative act of self. This is not in here, but it's implied. I'll come to it in a moment. But can you think of creative acts that people do? Paint, sculpt, whatnot, right? How about giving birth to a baby? Is that a creative act? Pain's involved? Can you think of a greater creative act other than the production of a child? Pretty heavy. Pain's involved. How much pain was involved in his own self-creation? He who contained everything that was to come. Pretty big, huh? Okay. The meaning, but we do know from this teaching that he was confronted by problems resulting from his own supreme creative act of self. The meaning of self is huge. Note that all creativity involves pain, or at least great discomfort, and the higher the wisdom and the more valuable the goal we seek, the greater, as the minister says, is the difficulty factor or the suffering involved. His self-creation is the root of this statement by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that everything of good has trouble in its infancy. He created himself with needs, but he also created himself with the infinite capacity to satisfy his own needs. He desired two things, comfort and company. He desired change, from pain to ease, from discomfort to comfort, change within himself. He also desired to see another being like himself. So he created himself a social being, did he not? Are you a social being? How do you feel being with nobody around, nobody to talk to? For some of us, because of the wrong way we have grown up and the wrong way we see things, have this thought: you don't really want to be around nobody else. So you add misery to misery. The same thing as when we brothers, sisters, mostly brothers too, eat late at night. You will go home tonight and you deliberately open your box at 11 o'clock. You know you got no business doing that. You know that's going to add pounds, but you want to put something in your mouth like a little baby. And you know that's going to be 4 or 5 pounds, 2 or 3 pounds, 5 or 6 ounces and whatnot. And over time, you become fat and you can't get rid of it. I became fat. A few years ago, I went all the way up to 165 pounds. And then I found I couldn't get rid of it. And then I understood deeper, sisters in particular, brothers in general, who get like that. I said, damn, man, I'm having a hard time getting rid of it. And you tend not to want to do the very thing you know will get rid of weight. Don't eat. You know if you don't eat, you will lose weight. Then you got to exercise you'll use a fancy word, tone up. I never know what the hell that means. It means tighten up. Getting rid of the flab. Using some olive oil and stuff to get rid of all them stretch marks. That putting it where it is? You can do that. But we get lazy. Because the gain weight is an act of laziness. I'm putting that on me. And you. We should be the slimmest people in America. I mean, we got this beautiful teaching. We got to be an example of it. All Muslims should be slim and trim. All of us. But some of you sisters lie to yourself and say, no, I got the middle-aged spread because I'm middle-aged. And I'm supposed to be like this way. Lie. That's an outright lie. That's a lie you tell yourself to make yourself feel comfortable with something that you know you don't want to. It's crazy, sisters. God said, get fit. Isn't that what he said in the lessons? You got the lessons in your house, don't you? Well, I ain't got this and I ain't got that. To hell with that. You got too much weight. You're not supposed to look like the sisters in the church house. Fat and 50. They don't look right. It's not necessary. Sister says she want to get married. The average brother don't want to marry. This is me. I love you. But I'm going to talk about it. Because I don't want you to forget it. The average sister want to get married, but the average brother don't want to marry an overweight sister. Am I right, brothers? You can lie and say you do. But that's a lie. It's not a falsehood. It's a lie. Lose the weight, sisters. You can lose it if you want to. Do you think you're going to get into Allah's kingdom fat? Where did you get those instructions from? And why is it so necessary? Because through you is tomorrow. No you, no tomorrow. When you fat, your mind ain't right. You make hell. You go home, brother, from a long, hard day's work. She determines, not you, she determines what the spirit of the house is going to be. If she wants to be funky, you can forget it, man. If she just decides, I'm just going to generate hell, she just generates it by her thinking.
Come on.
It's true. You can have 50 men in a room. A little sister, 3 years old, walk in the room. A 3-year-old baby, the atmosphere changes. The brothers get a little soft. They can be in a very serious, death-like subject. A little baby walking there, female baby, the brothers get all mushy. Changes everything. Or a grown woman walks in, the whole spirit changes. Sister, you got power that you don't know nothing about. You don't know nothing about it. I was in a conversation with some sisters the other day, and I came in late to the set, and they were discussing their thinking that they do as they're making babies. And I sat and I listened to these beautiful sisters for a while. Then when it was my turn, I said, the prophets prophesy, but you all execute. You make it happen. Everybody that's prophesied to do this, that, or the other, is you sisters that make that happen. Frank Lloyd Wright's mother is a perfect example. I forgot the reason, I'm sorry, why she didn't become an architect, but she went ahead and made one, a white woman. She made her one. By stuff on her head with that kind of literature, and before the baby was conceived, during and after, she made a great architect by thinking. God, man. Do you realize, sisters, and you are the generation that absolutely will make a new generation that's going to be better if you choose. And if you don't, you'll be miserable because God brought you in here, among other reasons, to help him. So if you want to fight, you fight in God, and you're always going to be unhappy. You can be married to a brother who's a millionaire. If you don't do what God wants, as he birthed you, you ain't never going to be happy. And you're going to go to the ice box tonight, and I'm going to try to be there when you get there.
Yes, sir.
And when you open the box, I'm going to say, what you doing here? I'm going to do it.
Yes, sir.
I mean, see the power of suggestion. Try to fight this. Now, I'm talking into your nature and into your self-interest. Open the box tonight. I may jump out. What you doing here, sister? No.
Yes, sir.
You don't have to be fat. You choose to be fat. And you give all these lies. It's just lies. You know if you don't eat, what's going to happen?
That's right.
I'm repeating myself, am I not? I want to drive it home. If you don't eat, what will happen? You will get thin. It's as axiomatic as if you jump off a 40-story building, the likelihood is what? That you will die.
Right.
You want to get your mind ready to look better? All you need to do, sister, is read How to Eat to Live. Read 40, 50 pages. It'll put you in the right mindset. Those books give you the right attitude toward food. It lets you put food, it gives you the feeling, I can master this. Go home tonight, read 20, 30 pages, come back tomorrow, see how you feel. Okay? Now let me get on with this. I don't have a lot of time. He was confronted with a set of problems, the first of which originated with himself. The other set of problems were external to himself, for beyond himself was pitch blackness, total darkness, and nothing. Let me ask you, any of you astrophysicists know whether or not why it is cold in space? If it's cold in space, the sunlight is going throughout space, the solar system, right? Why is it dark? I'm asking you, why is it dark, and is it cold, and if it's cold, why? And was cold the original state? Was darkness the original state? Was nothingness the original state? Good question, huh? So he went to war and worked to change things. Why are we being told this? All of us gotta go to war today. Right. Every brother and sister's gotta be a warrior. You got a warrior minister. Shauna's a warrior from the giddy up. Who else you got in here? Jackie is a warrior. He looked the same as he did when I first saw him a bunch of years ago. You got, and Sister Ruth, you got some quote-unquote, don't misunderstand the word, war horses here. Been through some stuff already. And ready to deal. They ain't going nowhere. For what? Huh? To go someplace else is like death. No. And some of us want a good fight. Well, you in a fight. But start with yourself. Or pardon me, include yourself in the fight. You should have meetings like this on a Friday night. You can have it if you choose to close the gap between yourself and Minister Farrakhan. Don't say you love the great Khan and you don't dig his study guides enough to be there on a Friday night? You are what? Say it loud. It ain't even deceptive intelligence. It's just straight up lying. Unadulterated, straight in your face lying. Huh? Okay, now. He went to war with himself and worked to change things within and outside of himself. Note Minister Farrakhan's speech, out of which his study guides came, self-improvement, the basis of community development. Let me just insert this. This is very important. I can't go into it too deep, it take too much time. But I saw something in the minister that was very strange at that time. It was 1986. He was preparing for his talk in Phoenix. He wanted to be totally by himself. The only person that knew where he was me. I was the one bringing him the meals the sisters was cooking. Whenever he thought about going back to Chicago, he would get depressed. But he took his mind off that and kept it on. The Phoenix speech, he was upbeat. I watched, it was like something going out and something else coming in. This was 86. I never will forget as long as I live. The day before the speech and then the day of the speech, we went up a place called Squaw Peak, which is a raunchy name, Squaw. And we went up there. And I noticed how upbeat he was. He put his talks on these little cards. And I kept studying. I said, something is going on here with my brother. And he made that speech and he was juiced. And a few days later, we went to Chicago. He was still up. And then the 2 days, the day before the speech and the day of the speech, he went into a deep depression. There was nothing I could say to help him. Nobody else could say nothing. He was on his violin. I just watched him. I said, what is going on here? And then he made the speech that night. We came back in his room, Brother Salim, myself, and him, and he was juiced up again. The next day he went down. And I kept studying this, and I came to see. I saw something inside of it. I saw something that, well, I'll just say it like this. I saw something ending in him and something else being born in him. And I don't want to be any more specific than that right now, but if I tell you what all I saw, I need time to explain myself. That would take me too far away from this. And if you appreciate, or not need, but this wisdom that you got that you haven't been appreciating like you should, then invite me back in a few months and I'll go into that. But I don't want to go into that now. And that's the kind of thing that you want to handle intelligently, because you know there's a lot of people, Orthodox Muslims and Christians and whatnot, who don't like the basis of where we're coming from. And so that whole thing has to be handled intelligently. But we are what we are, and you know what you know. And the minister's identity, that of the Almighty Muhammad, even of ourselves, because we are the real people who they say they are. The Jews, Christians, and Muslims say they're the chosen. It's us. The problem, huh? They got a problem. Once we say it's us, it's hard for them to get around that. But that means they got to review everything. I'm going to leave that alone right now, but Einstein is quoted as having said, quote, "The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them," close quote. Is that true for each one of us? Okay. I don't doubt that Einstein said what I quoted above. However, the ultimate credit for its wisdom must go back to the first God/man in the light of what we're learning from the Word of God. The first one certainly changed the problems of his first condition through the power of his mind. He studied. What did he study? Himself. Why himself? Why not something else? There was nothing else for him to study. What motivated his study? Desire. There's no such thing as an intellectual thought or a reason. I don't care how scientific your thinking is, that isn't intricately connected to the emotional factor. No atom exists without an electron. If you get deep in it, they call it positive and negative. But that terminology is stupid. It's not really positive and negative in the sense of good and bad. People who think like that are thinking about Adam and Eve. And Eve is bad. Wasn't for that damn Eve, everything would have been cool. That's sick. That's viewing creation from a distorted, wicked, putrid mind. Okay? Now, the first one certainly changed the problems of his first condition. He studied. What did he study? Himself. There was nothing else for him to study. What motivated his study? Desire. For what? Change. For the better. Does God study?
Yes, sir.
Why? To get better. We dealt with that last night. You who weren't here, you're going to get the tape, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, the first study ever made was theological. How could it be other than theological? Why? Because he was God. So the study of himself was theological. The study of your true self is what? Theological. How can it be other than that? Then the greatest, the mother of all studies is what? The study of God. Theology. But theology in this world is some silly stuff that don't mean nothing, ain't got nothing to do with everyday reality. Okay, now, this study was and is the source of all studies. He thoroughly studied himself in a supreme effort to satisfy his desires, which could only come through the changes which he determined. He came to see what was within himself, which would resolve both sets of internal problems just mentioned. Both sets of problems, external and internal, just mentioned. Through this process of study, he generated the image of what? Woman, his second self. He conceptualized, designed, and determined. I'm going to repeat that. He conceptualized, designed, and determined the structure and function of woman. She was the resolution of the problem of his discomfort, and she was the means by which other beings would come into existence. I put this on the tape for some people in some cities who ignorantly jumped the gun. Some believers in the nation, I don't know why we just think so silly, automatically say, well, when he started having children, incest began. How the hell do you know that? You wasn't back there. Are you assuming that they lived the same age as Negroes and white people? Huh? Come on. How long did they live? Just say, I don't know, because I sure don't know. If you know, I want to know how you found out. How long did they live? What the hell do we know about that? Why don't we just be honest and say, I don't know? Then you can grow. I'm dealing with this straight up because there are people I've run into who bring up incest in the beginning. And I say, where the hell did you get that from? You are imposing on something that's huge. Your narrow-minded conception of things. Bring into that glorious wisdom the stuff that happened in your own life or stuff that you conceive. Do you see what I'm saying? You can't bring the Negro thing to this. You gotta leave the Negro thing. You can't bring the colored boys thing to this. You gotta leave that behind. This is way out of the box talk. Okay. Again, I said, you can't bring the Negro or the colored boy conception to this. How long did they live? Maybe they lived 1,000 years? Well, how the hell you don't know? Because there was no time yet. There was no sun. How long did they live? We don't know. We ain't got no way to find that out. Nor do we know how long it took him to get here. How long it took him to produce the woman. We don't know. But they did start making babies. You got a problem with that? If they didn't, you wouldn't be here. We couldn't be talking about this. That shows our direct connection with way back yonder from the Gideon. Plain language. You had a mother and a father?
Yes, sir.
Who had a mother and a father?
Yes, sir.
How far back does that go? All the way to the beginning. I'm a son and a daughter of God. How did you get to be that? Very easy. Spiritually and otherwise, that takes some effort. But physically, you know that you are a son and a daughter of God because somebody gave birth to you. And the same act and the process by which you got here, that's been repeating. The process by which a baby is formed bears witness to the beginning.
That's right. That's right.
That's part of the sacredness of the woman. That's why we don't beat them up and we don't rape them. Right? No incest. You want to go to heaven, brothers? How do you get there? Die? Huh? No, you marry heaven. Heaven is on this side of the room. Some of them over here. Heaven. She don't know that, but the more she realizes that, then she fixes herself up. Don't you? You don't say you want to get married and you weighing 273 pounds and got a negative spirit. You nothing but hell. Hell on 2 feet. Do you see my point? And you repulse a brother. He's looking deep and he sees that beautiful spirit every now and then. But you projecting so much other stuff out there, he get tired. So he gives it up. I'm putting something on your mind because God got a husband for every sister. Straight up. Don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, damn it, because you wasn't there when I was told that. I didn't see you at the table. On that point. You got something else that I don't know, but you can't argue with me about that. And get rid of, there are some believers in the nation, I don't know what kind of field of science it is, but there are some believers in the nation that know that menopause is you almost could call it a white woman's disease, pardon the expression. But you ain't gotta have that, sister. You choose it by thinking like a white woman. You in the mosque, long dress, thinking like a white woman in certain areas of your life. Why are you stepping on our toes, brother? I'm not stepping on your toes. It's an expression of love. That's what this is. You know I made my point. You ain't gonna forget it. This is the root of the pair principle mentioned throughout the Quran. His study was motivated by the highest kind of self-love. She was in him. He loved himself. So he created her out of his love for himself, which was the love of her as she was part of himself. She couldn't help but love him, for it was from love that he created her. The process, or all of the steps involved by which he created her, were characterized or permeated by this process, which was generated by his love. That love was the basis of the natural and heavenly state between them on down into the trillions of years, up to approaching 66 trillion years ago. Up to that time, man and God knew each other because all men were gods and all women were goddesses. We begin to fall out of that condition starting 66 trillion years ago. Okay? If I just use this mic, will all the other mics pick up? No, sir. Let me take them both so I can do what I gotta do. Thank you. Okay, look. Here he is and here she is, right? We don't know how much time. At a certain point, he produced son. Son didn't happen abracadabra. He willed, he formed son in his mind. And he willed it to be a certain size. When it grew to that size, it stopped growing. Pretty smart, huh? Now, other gods came after him and they produced stars. All the white folks that you're reading about who say there's life outside the solar system, lie. They can't prove it. If you state something as an opinion or an assumption, state it like that, if that's what you really mean. But they present as facts at the beginning of their writing. I've read this stuff. They are as ignorant as they are of Pluto or Plateau. If the white man don't have that straight, don't tell me nothing about something a whole bunch of light years outside of the solar system. If you can't get straight on what's on Pluto, that is way bigger than what they think of it. They think it's the size of the moon or smaller. Wrong. Master Farad Muhammad's study is accurate. It's in your problem book. You got that in your house, don't you? Huh? Go study it. Study what you got. All right, sun, stars. Then came moon. Sun, the active will of God. Stars, the active will of God. Moon, the permitted will of God. For trillions of years, I don't know how long, for a long time, back before 66 trillion, it takes you to 76 trillion years ago. I'm not writing everything down, I'm saying it. I want you to remember and make your notes as I do this. Go home and study it. For a long time, prior to 66 trillion years ago, you have it in your writings at home from Elijah Muhammad, that the scientists wrote history to last maybe 35,000 years, right? 35 men, 35,000 years. How far back? At least 10 trillion years. At least 10 trillion. A trillion is a lot of years, huh? A trillion. A trillion is a million billions. That's like saying blah, 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 blah. It's so long, it doesn't mean nothing to us, right? Okay. But it took him 6 trillion years to produce a writer from himself. Now, how long it took that writing and all that to develop, I don't know. But if it took a million years, I mean, when you look at inside of a trillion, 100,000 years is a long time. 200, 300, 100,000, a million years, 2 million years. Stop and look inside of all of this. What were we doing back then? Were we smart? Well, we can hardly conceive of that. We wasn't stupid, though. Now, if you got brothers out there making stars, they're not stupid. That's a hell of a lot more than a building, isn't it?